Sixth show of the week. I have not slept. I just ate a bowl of Cheerios, and I am ready to go. It is Canucks Conversation. Joining me on this episode of Canucks Conversation is Canucks Army's prospect guru, Dave Hall, as a co-host because, folks, it is our 2024 Vancouver Canucks Draft recap episode. Dave, thanks so much for joining me.
No, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be in the co-host chair for the day.
Yeah, and you're going to do a great job because you did a great job nailing most of these picks, and it's a very interesting day two of the Canucks draft. So let's get into it. Today's episode is very proudly brought to you by, you've heard us talk about them before, but not for a while, Zephyr Epic. They are back on board, and we are very excited to welcome back Zephyr Epic to the Canucks Conversation family. Join Zephyr Epic for a fun-filled trading event celebrating CONMEBOL Copa America 2024. There will be prizes, food, giveaways, and of course, epic trades. So get ready to complete your CONMEBOL Copa America USA 2024 official Panini sticker collection at Zephyr Epic. Copa America 2024 runs from June 20th to July 14th and is a great opportunity to meet fellow soccer enthusiasts, exchange stickers, and enjoy the vibrant community here in Greater Vancouver. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, this event is perfect for collectors of all ages. Bring your duplicates, meet fellow enthusiasts, and complete your collection. Don't miss out on this exciting opportunity to add those missing stickers to your album. Be sure to reserve your ticket on Eventbrite to secure a chance to win 2 tickets to the Whitecaps' first Wrexham game. Winners will be announced July 10th, and you can find the Eventbrite link in our YouTube and podcast descriptions. This event is on July 6th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Zephyr Epic retail store at 8065 130th Street in Surrey. Big shout out to Zephyr Epic. Okay, we've got a lot to talk about, Dave. Let's start with the pick at 93rd overall for the Vancouver Canucks. It was their first pick of the day, ranked 93rd by Steven Ellis at Daily Faceoff in his mock draft, right at 93rd. It is high-scoring Swedish winger Melvin Fernstrom. Fernstrom played 6 games with Örebro of the SHL, the same club as Jonathan Lekkerimäki, and he registered 31 goals and 32 assists through 45 games with Örebro's junior squad. What can you tell us about this player?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome that Ellis was able to bang it right on 93. That's awesome. But yeah, he was definitely one of my targets in my round 3 target list. I basically had a core Swedish group, and there was 4 of them, and Fernstrom was definitely on my list. I was anticipating and almost somewhat hoping that they might go right shot center, but you can't go wrong with Melvin Fernstrom. He's a dual threat scorer, whether he's making plays or using his awesome shot. He's scoring goals. He finished 3rd in the J20 scoring. So, I mean, right off the bat, offense is the swing here. That's just what you're going for. Like you mentioned, he did go up with the big club in the SHL, albeit obviously low utilized, but he was up there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get at least a look there at some point in the next year. So overall, I think with the kind of prospect pool that we're that the Canucks are dealing with here, I think Fernstrom is a nice little swing here because while he does have to work on some things like mainly skating and his physicality, I think there is a nice swing to go on upside here. He does have a potential to be a pretty good, middle 6 goal scorer at some point in the future. So.
And of course, you're going to get the chance to talk to him. He'll be out here for Dev Camp, we think, and he'll be out this week. You'll be out this week covering Dev Camp for us over at Canucks Army. So, folks, if you haven't already, make sure you check out CanucksArmy.com. Okay, Dave, we're going to get to the rest of the picks, but before we do that, the story of this draft, there was picks, obviously, but there was a lot of trades as well, and these will mean something to Canucks fans. So the first one that I want to talk about is the Devils trading John Marino to Utah Hockey Club for 2 picks. It's the 49th pick in the draft and a 2025 second round pick. The Canucks were obviously linked to this player. We know how much Jim Rutherford likes John Marino. Canucks don't go out and get him. It is Utah that goes and gets him, not to mention Mikhail Sergachev as well. Less of a connection to the Canucks for that one, but John Marino going to Utah. We don't need to dissect it or anything like that. It's just that we talked about this on Friday's episode of Canucks Conversation, so folks go back and listen to it with Harmon and I if you haven't already. And then the last one that we need to talk about, there were some other trades as well, but the one I think that's significant for Canucks fans is Chris Tanev going to the Toronto Maple Leafs. His rights, right? He's going to be a free agent in 2 days. Toronto's going to be able to have exclusive negotiating rights before that time. Will he pull a Dan Hamhuis? We will see. But he is traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs from the Dallas Stars. It was intriguing. It came right at the end of the draft. It made the draft very, very interesting right at the end. I'm curious to see where this goes with Tanev. Obviously, the connection there is that the Canucks were reportedly pretty high on Chris Tanev. I believe Rick Dhaliwal called him the Canucks' second most sought after target, right behind Jake Gensel. Don't think we really need to get into the Gensel news because there's not really any Gensel news other than the fact that it seems like he turned down Carolina's 8x8. We don't know what's going to happen. Monday, folks, we're going to have a very special free agency show of Canucks conversation. But I wanted to get those few little moves from the draft floor in. But Dave, we need to talk more about the rest of these picks. So the next pick the Canucks make is Riley Patterson, not Pettersson, at 125th overall. 6-foot center. He put up solid numbers with the Barrie Colts. Took just 10 penalty minutes. That's something I noticed. Steven Ellis had him ranked at 89th overall, ahead of Fernstrom. So Dave, tell me how the Canucks got this guy at 125th overall.
Yeah, I can see that. I could see how he was ranked 89th, and I can see how he kind of slipped. So I had him originally in my 6th round target range, but that was with the caveat that basically knowing he was probably going to be gone. But obviously with the Canucks not having a 5th pick, they didn't want to pass up on this kid. So it was, to be honest, it was just one of those drafts where it was very hard to predict. I mean, as you could see, I even had. There was some people or some names that I had in my mock draft. I went in the 3rd, aka Ben Danford, that went in the 1st round. So it was just kind of one of those drafts where every player was just kind of hard to predict. And Riley Patterson's kind of one of them. He had an amazing rookie season. Actually had a pretty slow start. So I think the fact that he led the rookie slate in goals and 2nd in points is pretty impressive, to be honest, considering his start. And overall, I think he's the perfect type of player that the Canucks needed, and someone that I actually, not specifically the player, but the type that I wanted them to target with their 3rd round pick, because, as we've mentioned in shows before, assuming, unless Atu Ratu comes out and he's a bona fide centerman, right now the best center in the prospect pool is Max Hassan. So they desperately needed a good centerman that has speed, dynamicism, and he can play a 2-way game. And it just so happens that he's a right shot. So he ticks off pretty much all the boxes, and he's still young as a 2nd-year OHLer. So I think there's still a little bit of rawness there. And I think it's a nice upside swing. And in the 4th round, I think it's great. I mean, as to how he was there, again, it's just one of those drafts where it's just so unpredictable. Everyone's looking for different things. There was a bit of a small little goalie run there right before, and then there was some right shot defenders. So I think it was just a luck of the draw that he fell.
Okay, Dave, I know you don't like doing this. People that are new to your draft coverage know you don't like giving the comparables, but we like to do the floor, and the ceiling. Do you mind giving me a floor and a ceiling or a comparable? Just how can you contextualize what Riley Patterson is as a player?
Yeah, I'm not a big comparable guy, that's for sure. I just it can go all over the map, but I think he's a well-rounded, like I said, he's a well-rounded, good skating. I think right off the top of my
I know you don't like doing this.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
Well, let's come back to it. I need to think about it. I can't just give out some willy-nilly name and just go with it. I will get there.
And for those that don't know, the running joke is when we do our Canucks, when Dave does our Canucks Army rankings, prospect rankings, I always ask him to give a floor and a ceiling, and it feels like the floor for every defenseman we go, yeah, it's Olli Juolevi. Olli Juolevi is this player's floor, and this player's ceiling is Quinn Hughes. Moving on here, Dave. Let's get to 162nd overall, where the Canucks take overager and OHL leading goal scorer Anthony Romani. I was asked about it. Yes, folks, this is a name you can trust. They take him at 162nd overall, 58 goals and 111 points. The counting stats are impressive here. Again, Dave, Steven Ellis had him ranked 81st overall in his mock draft over at Daily Faceoff, and Elite Prospects had him at 97th. Also, quickly, huge shout out to Elite Prospects for their draft guide. They crushed it. Daily Faceoff, Steven Ellis as well, also crushed his mock draft. But again, Dave, ranked much higher than where the Canucks got him at 162nd overall. So similar question to Riley Patterson, not the comparable question, the question of how did the Canucks get him in the 6th round at 162nd overall?
Well, this one's a little bit easier, and I think it's just the fact that he was, a double eligible. I just think, last year he was okay. He put up, pedestrian numbers as a draft eligible, and it's obvious that he has a good shot and good playmaking ability. But I think there was some physicality and a little bit of defensive lapses in his draft year. So he slipped last year, and I don't think he's fully. He hasn't fully turned that around. I still think there's some development to do. And obviously he's quite raw, obviously being a 6th-round pick. But I mean, at this point with 111 points and 58 goals leading the OHL, it was just a matter of when he was going to get picked. I had him myself as a 4th-round target. So exact opposite as Patterson. I had them basically swapped. And, it was just one of those things. He gained a lot of strength this year. And, overall, I think it's a steal at the 6th round. I mean, at least it could be a steal at the 6th round, whether it's, depth offense or not. I just think he's a steal at the 6th round. You just can't go wrong.
What are the weak parts of his game aside from being older? What are the weak parts of his game specifically?
Yeah, he's not the most, he's not a burner by any means, and he's not the most fluid of skaters. He gets by, but you kind of get the feel that he's, you kind of worry, and this might be a big reason why he does ultimately fall, is that you wonder if he's a high level junior scorer. And with that, I just mean, he makes some plays where you can get by in junior. You can get by with all the plays that he makes in junior. He's got a really good shot. He's a really good playmaker, but you just wonder with the lack of skating ability, and, he's a little bit unpolished in the defensive end. So I just think overall there probably is some questions on his transferability up to the next level. But again, we're in the 6th round here. You're pretty much throwing darts, and at this point, there's just no. If I'm not mistaken, he's only a couple weeks older than any older or younger draft eligible. Anyways, it's just he's the 2nd year eligible, so he's not even that older. He's just, he's a little bit older.
Is it fair to say that the Canucks have gone for just high upside picks here? Because look, I'm a big fan of going for those high upside picks. Owner Quad says it all the time on the show. Just draft me the tallest right shot defenseman you can find. We'll get to that in a second, because they did seem to find that with their next pick that we're going to talk about. But it feels like the Canucks drafting philosophy, and Cam Robinson touched on this week. You were also on that episode, the draft primer episode we did. The Canucks style under Patrik Allvin and Jim Rutherford when it comes to drafting seems to be going for those high upside picks. And I think when you don't have a ton of picks, that's what you should be doing. You should be trying to mine whatever you can from the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only do they not have a lot of picks, they don't have a lot of prospects, so you've got prospects, but a lot of them are, you're just hoping that they're going to be those fringe, 3rd, 4th liner guys, if that. And so, why not throw up some upside swings? And they definitely did that. Like, I think Patterson in the 4th round is good value. If they got him in the 5th, it's a steal. And I think the 4th round is still good value. So I really like the projectability of, at least a bottom 6, probably even middle 6 with his skating and his two-way ability. So, like, I love that swing with Fernstrom. You're just that's exactly what it is. You're hoping he can come in, work with, a guy like Jonathan Lekkerimäki, to be honest. But at the same way with the Lekkerimäki, with the Fernstrom, is that was the one thing I wasn't exactly sure where they're going, because he's basically just, Lekkerimäki 2.0, just a lesser version, right? So, I think he's a little bit bigger and he's got a bit more playmaking probably, but at the same time, there is definitely a couple names that I think they probably could have went with at that point. But yeah, at this point, you don't have a lot of prospects, you don't have a lot of picks. Just throw some darts, see what you can do with the upside here.
Okay, we're not doing an anyone else segment because this isn't a totally regular edition of Canucks Conversation, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't go to the YouTube live chat, because we've got a ton of people watching us right now. Folks, wherever you're watching, like the video, subscribe, follow Canucks Army, head to CanucksArmy.com. You can read Dave's prospect thoughts every week in the Canucks Army Blackfish Report during the season, where we keep track of all Canucks prospects, all their counting stats, everything you need to know about them. Canucks Army is your one-stop shop for all the prospect coverage you could ever hope for. Let's get to some listener questions here. Dave, this one from K-Town Chef, regular listener of the show in the YouTube live chat. Can I ask why, just because he's in his D1 year, teams place such lower value on these players? If he had this production a year ago, where would he have gone in the draft? And you don't need to answer that second question, because obviously the answer is much higher. But why do you think teams have they're so low on these overage guys?
It's just less runway, right? Like, it's just, in my opinion, especially at the junior level, they've had more time to kind of gain maybe those bad habits of junior without that NHL coaching instruction. And overall, they're just a little bit older, so there's just less time to do it. Again, I don't think it's that big of a deal with Romani because he's not even that much older than any of the draft eligibles first year this year. But I think that's probably just it. It's just runway. They'll have less time with that coaching, scouting, NHL coaching rather. And I just think overall, you'd rather go lower for a guy that you have a bigger runway with than someone who's a little bit older.
This one from Tim Jones kind of talking about this. How does he compare to his own age group drafted last year? Is he better than half of them? And it's more of a philosophical question, right? About when you're talking about these overage players. Let's get to this one from 7th Street Dream in the chat. He said, any undrafted players and or unqualified young players that the Canucks should target on Monday, getting a few other center guys in the pipeline would be awesome.
Well, in terms of undrafted guys, unless it happened, I know that right after the Canucks pick, I rushed to come to this, so I don't think he went. But Alex Zetterberg is a name that I was hoping
I remember that
they may have went. I think the 3rd probably was a little early, so probably maybe the 4th. But he's definitely a player that He's smaller. Don't get me wrong. He's a small kid, but he's got some juice on him, and so that's a name that I'd be definitely looking at in the future to cause a spark.
Okay. I'm being asked to ask you about this player. This is from Alec Correa, another regular listener of the show. He said, I know owner Quads would hate this guy because he's undersized, but ask Dave about Max Swanson. He was taken by Pittsburgh.
Yeah, my guy. He was my boom bust guy. And if he wasn't 5'7", I think he probably goes in the top. I don't know. Obviously I can throw out whatever number I want, but definitely within the first 3 rounds. No, if not the first top 2. He's just, if you need a goal or a point at all, he's pretty much your guy. He's a dynamic offensive playmaker and goal scorer. Unfortunately, he's just really small, and that's what I think. I just alluded to Alex Zetterberg. I think that's ultimately what was his downfall. Is he's also really small. But with Max Swanson, he's a lot of fun. Pittsburgh, the fans over there are going to have a lot of fun watching his highlight reel. He's just really small.
Okay, we've got 2 more picks to get to from the Canucks here, Dave, as we kind of wrap up today's show. Let's get to it. Port Moody's Parker Alkos, a 6'3" right shot defenseman. He fits the owner Quads model. I'm super happy with this draft pick, not only because he's from the Tri-Cities, best place on earth, but also because he's 6'3" and he's a right shot defenseman. In all seriousness, I saw a lot of people pointing out that he has serious shutdown potential. Played his last couple seasons with the WHL's Edmonton Oil Kings. Jacob knows about this player, our producer, Jacob Lazar, so we'll call on him in a second. But what can you tell me about this player, Dave?
Well, yeah, right off the bat, obviously the fact that he's a right-hand shot, that was something that I was really looking forward to. I was wondering when those were coming up. Right before that pick, all of my top right-hand guys started going one by one, and I was getting a little nervous for who was going to be left for them as a right shot because they just couldn't go this draft without drafting at least one. There was quite a few names that were sitting there in multiple of their picks. So, but yeah, huge defender, shutdown guy. What I love about him is he can skate. He's not just a shutdown guy that's just going to kind of, play on the point and, hope that he can stop guys. He can stop guys. He moves around the ice. He's all over the place, and he's a local kid. So you definitely love the pick. I know a lot of people had him. Some of them had him as high as 93. I believe Elite Prospects had him 93. So.
Yeah, he was ranked high.
Awesome.
He was ranked high. This one from Brandon Narayan, also a regular listener. I love seeing all the regular listeners in the chat. Brandon says, girls are less obsessed with height than quads. Hey, I like my big defenseman. Go get me that tall defenseman. Go get me the tall center. I could turn that guy into something. Go get me Riley Tuft. Okay, Jacob, you had something on Parker Alkos. You've watched him play. You were texting me about him as soon as this pick happened. What can you tell us about Parker Alkos?
Yeah, so he, as a local kid, I watched him when he was playing for the Vancouver Northeast Chiefs in the BC EHL under 18 league. So that was in 2021-22. So the Chiefs won the provincial championship. They beat the Alberta champions from Calgary. So they went to the TELUS Cup National Championship. And Alkos was just like a minute eater, shutdown guy. Like I remember seeing him in the BC championship final. And I swear the guy didn't come off the ice in the third period. He was just out there. Every time I looked up, I saw that big frame. He was 6'1", 6'2" at the time as well. So you noticed him on the ice. And I was happy to see him picked. Obviously, local kid and, big right shot defenseman. I think there's far worse the Canucks could have done with a 6th round pick than taking a swing on a guy like this.
I'm very excited to see these guys all throughout this week at Dev Camp. We're going to have a lot of coverage of development camp over at CanucksArmy.com. And something, Dave, that's come up in my mind is after this draft, it's always fun to see when we do the updated Canucks Army prospect rankings, which you'll do in a couple weeks, I'm sure, where you look at, the top 10, 20, whatever number we pick, prospects in the system, where these guys will slot in, who's getting bumped down, who's getting bumped up. I'm going to ask you, any of these guys slip into your top 3 today? Any in the top 5? Like, just kind of walk me through what you're thinking of when you look at the top 5 and if you're deciding if a guy goes in. Because obviously, I think last year, Tom Willander immediately jumped into the number 2 spot. And then the year before that, Jonathan Lekarmaki immediately jumped into the number 1 spot. Doesn't feel like maybe that happened today, but top 3, top 5, what are you thinking here?
I love the question. And it was something that I was chuckling to myself when they're drafted, I input them in my nice Excel spreadsheet there. And I don't think the funny thing about it is in almost every position, they pretty much overtake at least the top 2 spots. Obviously I'm going U23. That's typically what I usually go for. And so, on the right side, I think Fernstrom comes in and he instantly goes over Danila Klimovic. So I think in terms of prospects, I think you're instantly considering Fernstrom your number 2 right wing prospect. I think right away, again, all depends on what you think, whether you think Aatu Räty is going to be a center or not. I think Patterson probably is your number 1 center, maybe number 2. Again, that's up for debate. Because now Sasson's going to max out and he's over 23. So, he's 1 or 2 right up there. So I think overall, I don't know if any of them slip into my top 3. But I definitely top 5, absolutely, with your Fernstrom and your Patterson, and Romani's not far off either. So, I just think I don't think quite top 3, but they're up there, which is not a great sign. I mean, it's not great that you draft guys third round up and they're, in my opinion, in your top 5, but it's a start.
It's a start, and we're going to see what your top 10, what your top 5, what everything looks like when you do your rankings for CanucksArmy.com. Folks, if you're just joining us, because a lot of people are joining throughout the show, make sure you hit like on the video, subscribe to the Canucks Army YouTube channel. My name is David Quadrelli. I'm joined by Dave Hall. He's our prospects guru over at Canucks Army, and you can find me and Dave sometimes as well on Canucks Conversation, which rolls 5 days a week live on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. And 3 times a week during the off season. I think we're going to have a pretty busy week ahead of us here, coming up with free agency on Monday. And of course, Dev Camp as well. Dave, I'm sure we'll have you on for an episode from Dev Camp. It's going to be a lot of fun. Busy week up ahead here. Okay. We've got one last pick. Folks, if you have any questions for Dave, questions for myself, get them into the YouTube live chat. We want to read. We want to hear from you. We've got a lot of people talking in the YouTube live chat. This last one, Dave, I couldn't find much on this guy. Basil Sansonens, left shot defenseman out of Switzerland. Not very high point totals in the U20 Swiss League. Can you tell me anything about this guy?
I have to be quite honest. When I heard his name, it was the first name that I heard that I had to kind of go through the books and be like, okay, I had to go back. So to be quite honest, I don't have too much personal just opinions on him, but what I've heard is, a nice shutdown guy, had a pretty good look with the Swiss team over at the World Junior, not the World Junior, sorry, the under 18s. And I think you're hoping for some nice size and shutdown ability, but overall, I think they did leave some names on the table that I was a little concerned or just surprised that they didn't pick. Like Thomas Galvis is a name that comes to mind directly, and I don't know. Obviously, they see something, so I'm going to take a deeper look, and there'll definitely be some updates on his game pretty shortly here. But right off the bat, not too much in the personal department here.
It was funny. So I was reading up on Sanson, reading whatever I could. Honestly, there just wasn't much out there. So one thing I read is he's young for the draft with a late August birthday. I read that from Daniel G on Twitter. So that's an interesting thing. One thing I noticed just looking at his elite prospects page was the point totals weren't really there in the regular season, like we showed, 1 goal, 2 assists through 40 games, but through 9 playoff games. Again, I'm being a total elite prospects, and I shouldn't call it an elite prospect scout. I'm a game log scout right now.
Yeah.
9 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists. Outscores his regular season in 9 games as opposed to 40. I don't know. Maybe
Shows up when it matters.
That's right. Shows up when it matters. That's our official stance on Vasil Samsonens. He's a player you can win with because he shows up when the games matter. In all seriousness, I am very intrigued to get a look at the 6'4" rear guard along with the rest of the Canucks draft class. So just to recap here, Dave, the Canucks selected high-scoring Swedish winger Melvin Fernstrom at 93rd overall, OHL center Riley Patterson at 125th, OHL goal-scoring leader Anthony Romani at 162nd, local product and shutdown right-shot defenseman Parker Alkos at 189th, and of course, Vasil Samsonens that we just Samsonens. Oh, Dollywall's gonna have a time with that one. Yeah, Samsonens. Yeah, with their last pick. Dave, I'm gonna throw you a question. If you had to pick, because this is just a fun part of the draft show. If you had to pick, which one of these players is going to play the most NHL games for the Vancouver Canucks?
Patterson, Riley Patterson. Obviously we're hoping that Fernstrom can hit. He's obviously got that offensive, that touch. There's just too many. Riley Patterson hits all the boxes. Fernstrom's got some good offensive. He's not elite, but he's good at most things in the offensive zone. He's still a project. There's still some skating that needs to be done. He's got to be more physical. Like he's got size, but he needs to learn how to use it. So there's definitely some, and then obviously he's got to come over and translate his game to the North American life. So, there's a lot more question marks with him. And I just think Riley Patterson, pound for pound, just has way too many projectables among this list not to consider him, again, probably bottom 6, maybe middle 6 center though.
I love it. I love that you had an answer for that question too. Do you want to get into comparables for Riley Patterson? Did you have time?
That's fair. Tell you what, I will when I write something about him. I off the top of my dome, I just can't give out a random one.
A cliffhanger. I like it, Dave. I like it. Make sure you check out Dave's work at CanucksArmy.com. Okay, and this is one from Alec Correa for me. How sad are you, Quads, about them not drafting a no-name European goalie? I really thought they were going to. And the rule typically is every two out of every 3 drafts, they take a goalie. So they're taking one next year. They didn't take one this year. I was a little bit surprised by it, but they do have some goalies in the pipeline already that they really believe in. Obviously with Ty Young, Aku Koskenvo, interested to see both of those guys. Koskenvo was somebody that had a huge rise, it feels like, in terms of what he looked like on the ice from his draft year to the year after we saw him at development camp. So this will be his 3rd development camp with the Canucks coming up this week. I'm really intrigued to see how he looks, how his movement looks, and where it looks like he's improved in his games, maybe what he needs to work on. Looking into the future in his game, and Ty Young as well. Really excited to see him. They fit a similar mold.
Well, and with Aku, it's important if you are looking at elite prospects or those stat pages, his game is not all about his stats. He didn't have the greatest stats last year with Harvard, but he was outstanding. He was pretty much Harvard's, if not best player, almost every single game that he played. So, if you're worried about his stats, don't be. He was a lot better than his stats show.
Yeah, Matt Folger about the non-goalie pick. Great question, Alec. How did we not pick up an Ian Clark special from the 3rd-tier Lithuanian league? Good one. It's true. It's true. I really thought they were going to. I really, really did. I especially thought they were with that 2nd, 6th round pick, but they didn't in the 7th either. So, hey, they didn't like anybody this year, I suppose, or I shouldn't even say that. They didn't take a goalie this year. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, so we have some free agency questions now as well. We'll save them for Monday. Obviously, there was some stuff on Gensel and the Lightning today. People are like, do you think Gensel's going to the Lightning? I know as much as you, folks. You've seen Elliot Friedman's report. I know as much as you. I maybe he goes. I strongly, and this is just my hunch, I still think Steven Stamkos ends up at Tampa Bay Lightning. And that's maybe because I can't imagine him with any other team, but they free up a bunch of cap space. I really think Steven Stamkos is going to be a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning by this time Monday. And you can take that to the bank. That's a Quads guarantee. So, I would be surprised if Stamkos wasn't a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning. So do with that what you will about Jake Gensel and what it means for him. I'm going to say no. I don't see Jake Gensel going to the Lightning. I'm going to say Stamkos ends up with the Lightning not Jake Gensel. And obviously Gensel is the Canucks' number one target heading into free agency. We don't need to touch on it more, but Chris Tanev again going to the Leafs. If you are just joining us, we talked about it earlier in the show. We talked about the trades that kind of, the Canucks were around these players and they went elsewhere. So John Marino obviously goes to Utah, and then Sergachev as well goes to the Utah Hockey Club. Very interesting to see them making moves. As soon as they get a competent ownership group, they're looking like I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see what Utah looks like this
and what
year.
a deal.
Yeah.
Sergachev for JJ Moser and Connor Geekie in a second. Like that's a big deal, Good for them.
Yeah, exactly. And look, Tampa, like that's what makes me say that, Dave, about Stamkos is why is Tampa clearing cap space? Obviously, they probably want Jake Gensel, but if they can't get Jake Gensel, I don't think their plan B is like Jonathan Marchessault or whoever else, insert name there. I think plan B is Steven Stamkos. Like, I think they're going to go right back to their guy and bring back Steven Stamkos. I just can't imagine it, man. I can't imagine Steven Stamkos not being a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, I think we'll close. Oh, no, Dave, I told you to prepare a grade for the draft class as a whole. When you look at this draft class as a whole and what the Canucks had to work with in terms of what picks they had and what picks they were able to use, how do you grade them at the draft this year?
I think overall you have to like it with what they were given. I just think there's some good upside picks here. Those mid-round picks that they have, I just think those are just home runs for where they are. I don't think you can go wrong. So I can't give them an A or B just because they don't have a first or second. I don't like that they didn't shore up the center or the right-hand defenseman positions right off the bat. I had some names that I really liked in those first two picks that I thought were good names, but overall, I think I'm going to give them a C+. I just think there's some good upside here. There's some swings. Who knows if they work out, but I think for what they were given and what they had to work with, I think it's a C+ is a fine grade.
C+ is not far off from what Daily Faceoff did. Daily Faceoff gave them a B-. Battle Mode Bainbridge says B+ in the chat. I think they were one extra tall right-handed defenseman away from getting an A+ from me.
Agreed.
And no European goalie. I'm also giving them a B. I'm in that B- range. But yeah, I think all things considered, they did what they could with the draft. And there's some intriguing names. I like the philosophy. The more I watch today's draft, Dave, this is just me spouting on a tangent now. I hated when the analysts would come on and be like, this guy, he's certainly going to be an AHL forward, or he's certainly going to play on your fourth line. It's like a second round pick. I'm like, why? Why are you taking that in the second round? You can go find those guys on waivers. No problem. Yeah. Shoot for the stars.
Yeah, fair enough. Yep.
I don't know. I don't like that philosophy. I like what the Canucks doing, though. I like what the Canucks are doing. Okay. Dave, anything else that you wanted to say before we close it out? I go get some sleep and prepare for Monday's giant free agency show.
Not really. Thanks for having me. It's fun being on the co-anchor seat, and I'll give myself a bit of a pat on the back. I was 4 for 6 on my targets list there. Swap out a couple, rounds here or there, but overall, I was pretty happy. I mean, it's not that hard when you're putting out 30 names. You're bound to hit one, but overall, I'm happy with it. You hit 4.
You crushed it.
I hit 4. So it's good. I'm excited for it. I'm excited that we've got some more prospects coming in to cover here at Canucks Army, just because obviously it's just been a little bit doom and gloom lately. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Sorry, I need to respond to Karn here, who in the chat said sleeping at 2 p.m. No, Karn, I've been putting in 13-hour days the past couple days. I'm not sure if you've seen, we've done 6 shows this week. The Canucks don't stop doing stuff, and I have to do everything at Canucks Army. Well, I have a lot of help at Canucks Army. I should say
Quads is working hard.
Yeah,
I'm tired.
You did 6 shows this week, and I think the plan was 3. This was supposed to be the 3rd show of the week, and
the plan was 2 or 3 shows, and we ended up doing 6. This is number 6. I am very tired. I need to get some shut eye, and then Monday, the busiest day of the year for me personally, and I'm looking forward to it. And 6 Blooms, there he is. Romani is a great pickup, and 6 Blooms, obviously, Josh Bloom's dad, great guy. We talked to him. We talked to Josh Bloom on this show as well. Obviously, they know each other from their time at North Bay. So shout out to Josh Bloom. Shout out to Anthony Romani, who, like I said, name you can trust. Okay, Dave, anything else you want to say?
No, I'm excited for Dev Camp, and we'll see you there.
Right on, folks. Check out CanucksArmy.com all throughout the week, and really all throughout free agency, everything. We're going to have everything covered like a blanket. CanucksArmy.com. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video. Also, shout out to Zephyr Epic for being the presenting sponsor of all of our coverage this week. We really appreciate them. And don't forget to check out their link to their event in the description and in the podcast description as well. But for now, signing off for my co-host, Dave Hall, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar. My name is David Quadrelli. Thank you so much for listening to the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.